everyone. Welcome back to the Earthdawn Survival Guide, a podcast for novices and masters alike. I'm here with my fellow master, Josh Harrison. Actually, I think I've only reached like warden stage or something.
Hello, everybody.
And on today's podcast, we will be discussing all things tactical and combatical, because we're going to get into a deep dive on warriors. But if you have any questions for us, we're still waiting for any questions about patterns, because we know that's kind of a major component of Earthdawn. Feel free to email us at edsgpodcast@gmail.com, or any other question you've got for us.
Yeah. And really, we hope that everybody is staying safe and healthy, and we hope that our hour of rambling is enough to stave off the cabin fever and madness of the present day world.
Well,
distract
we're on episode
yourself.
21. So we've
21.
got at least
Our show can officially drink now.
In the United States, yes.
Yeah, in the U.S.
In the U.S.
It started in Europe. It started drinking 3 episodes ago.
Exactly. However,
or Canada.
By the point you are listening to this, if you're getting it first run, we have a Kickstarter out there for you about the Iopos book.
The Iopos book, the newest book, Iopos, Lair of Deceit, launched as of the planned release of this episode about a week and a half ago. As of this recording, it actually is not quite launched yet, because we record in advance. We're clever that way.
Kind of hard to record in arrears, but yeah.
Well, you know, it means like that we get a little bit in the bank, so that if something comes up and we have to delay, then we're not like missing our release schedule.
Because so far, cross your fingers, knock wood, neither one of us has contracted anything to keep us from producing this podcast, so yay.
If you missed last week's episode, go back and listen to like the first 5 minutes of last week's episode, because that was when he sort of initially announced it and talked about it, and it's on Kickstarter, and go, and we won't like continue, like we'll shill it, but we won't go in depth.
We're going to plug it because this is all about warriors, because at the moment, neither Josh nor I are battling any kind of a health disease, so we are warriors in that effect. So we'll start to break down Earthdawn warriors and go from there. So hopefully we'll be able to kill an hour for you, at least take your mind off of everything else and put you in a different frame of mind for your next adventure or your next character you're going to make. So,
there you go.
Yeah, so warriors... Clearly, just about every fantasy role-playing game has something along this line. The barbarian from D&D,
we've kind of had interesting stuff to talk about with the disciplines that we've had so far. We had air sailor, we had archer, we had beastmaster, we had wizard, we had weaponsmith, we had wizard. Like all of these have like unique, like the warrior. This is your fighting guy.
Yeah,
this is your guy. Like, if you want to go in and make your opponent dead by hitting them with pointy or heavy blunt objects, this is the one that you want.
If your mantra has been, because a friend of mine gave me this little tiny phrase many years ago, and I changed one word out of it because it was inappropriate. Hack / kill and pillage, burn down the effing village. If this is your mantra, this is your warrior.
This is, whether soldier or mercenary or fighter of any variety, if your objective is to get your opponent defeated, potentially by spilling by making their insides come on the outside.
Yes.
This is the way that you go about it.
Yes. So since every game of some kind, high-tech, low-tech, fantasy, sci-fi, has some kind of blanket warrior soldier discipline class to follow, Earthdawn is no different. You had to have one, because somebody has to slay the horrors.
Sure. The things that make the Earthdawn warrior a bit more special will probably come up as we work through the talent progression and the stuff there. But basically, the warrior is the guy what kills stuff. Them and the sky, like the Sky Raiders kind of as well have a little bit of that. But the Swordmaster like tempers the killing stuff with style.
Yes.
And a little bit of social panache. Whereas the warrior,
just does the dirty work and gets it done.
Yep.
This is the guy you hire to get the job done. And yeah, that's all there is to it. So
what's the Samuel L? What is it? Is it Samuel L when you absolutely have to kill every last mother in the room except no substitute?
Yes, exactly.
That's the warrior.
And they don't care which weapons they use. Could be bare hands, could be knives, could be swords, could be axes. They don't really care.
Yep.
So, of course, naturally speaking, the important attributes are dexterity, strength, and toughness. Those are big D, big U, big H.
Yeah, I mean, the dexterity to hit stuff, strength to do damage, and toughness to, like, stay up when your opponent is hitting you.
Yes. So this is going to be a real quick podcast today.
They have some talents that rely on other attributes, but yeah, basically the physical is where the warrior shines.
Well, which is why it says important attributes, not the only ones. But you can, by all means, take the warrior, make him your own, and if you want to make the Kwai Chang Kane, Kung Fu, wandering, nomadic warrior, by all means do so, but eventually you may have to find a group because you're not playing by yourself.
The one thing, because we talked about Beastmaster a couple of weeks ago, the one thing, while they can do it, the warrior actually does not do particularly well in the unarmed combat area. They can do it, because they can do any combat-related stuff, but they don't have a lot of their talents and abilities tend to assume or deal with them having a weapon of some sort.
Yeah, their karma ritual actually, I was going to lead right into that, actually has to have a weapon laid across their legs when they're sitting down doing their karma ritual. So they are attuned to, I can't say a weapon of choice, but weapons in general.
not like a sword master who typically would have like a particular weapon, a particular sword that they would fight with for the most part. The warrior, it will use whatever is handy. But the karma ritual actually like starts to hint at some of the stuff for the warrior that can be dealt with in Earth, that can develop in Earthdawn. It talks about the 4 exercises, the earth defense, the water defense, the fire attack, and the air attack. That the warrior is, in some respects, there is some flavor of like the wuxia, Hong Kong, Asian martial artist kind of thing. If you're looking at like, to pick the most iconic, shoot, and now I can't remember the name of it. Well, like House of Flying Daggers, or like if you think of a lot of like Hong Kong action cinema that has, why can't I remember the name of the movie that I'm actually wanting to think of?
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon?
Thank you. That was, yes. Like that is like, and a lot of that stuff. I mean, there's
literally, I just read Josh's mind. So
yeah, you knew what I was getting at. But those kind of like, there is very definitely a martial arts like style sort of hinted at there, that is kind of elemental. Like the earth defense is like if you think of like the earth defense and the water defense, like those are both defensive, but the element that they're associated with, clearly, like the earth defense is one where you are just basically like standing there like a rock and just taking it. Yes. Whereas the water defense is one where you're maybe more like flowing. And here I am doing like crappy like capoeira kung fu moves.
Well, it's a limited space in your office. But no, even Bruce Lee, the infamous Bruce Lee, said, water takes the shape of whatever it needs to take the shape of. Yeah. So be like water. And so to your point, I can at least add a flourish onto your point there. But I do love the fact that there's 2 attacks and 2 defenses. So they're evenly balanced. The warrior is evenly balanced as far as that's concerned.
It's not addressed in here at all, but the essay for the warrior from Adept's Way and in the 3rd edition Player's Companion takes maybe a little bit of a different approach, talking about the sword and the shield. I forget exactly what the term is they use for it, but like that the way like these are the warrior's relationship with the tools of their job, with their weapon, with their shield. Those carry a mystic significance for them, and that they're not. It's more than just simply, this is the thing that I use to kill people. Those have a significance and a mystical, philosophical resonance and representation within the way that the warrior approaches the recognized dirty job of, killing stuff.
Yeah. Well,
or fighting stuff. Even like there's not even like the job of the warrior. Like anybody can kill stuff. The job of a warrior is to win the battle. And that does not necessarily mean, it just means you need to defeat the opponent. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to kill them.
No.
Like if you like Sun Tzu, The Art of War, like a lot of the like philosophical, maybe monastic kind of approach of, that's why there is kind of like a
battle and fighting and all of that.
That's why there is kind of a almost, I think, Eastern martial arts kind of flavor to the Earthdawn warrior that you don't typically see, because there is a much stronger, I think, philosophical foundation to combat within, at least as we view it today, like traditional Eastern martial arts and stuff that you don't necessarily see from a more Eurocentric point of view.
No, I agree.
Although you could very well do like a kind of knight, like if you think of like the classical, Knights of the Round Table who have this code and, way of behaving and stuff and excelling in the art of combat as part of that. Like that can certainly be in there as well.
Yeah.
It's just the Western philosophy, like Western thought does not tend to go with that. Now, I having not to the same extent. Although there is certainly plenty of lest we get angry emails from our fighting men and women. There is very definitely like philosophy and thought and stuff that goes into the life of a soldier and whatnot.
The warriors.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. There is an honor. There's a code. Never leave a man behind. Come back with your shield or on it. So there are quotes.
It's just, it doesn't take on the mystic resonance that goes along with the magic of the Earthdawn warrior.
No, I agree.
I think that there's it's a different thing, but it is also certainly an applicable place to draw from.
We kind of began to mock the warrior build in Earthdawn just because we're like, everything else was really special. Warriors are not. And to the last 5 minutes we've talked about it, warriors are still special in Earthdawn because they do hold that position of they are the brave and the willing to walk up and say, this fight is mine. That's it. Everybody else can stay behind me. I'm going in first. And that is definitely a mindset that you need. I've never actually played a warrior in Earthdawn.
I have. I like the warrior. I mean, I personally lean more towards Swordmaster, but that's the troubadour in me.
You're just a guy that loves to flourish. That's all.
Yeah. I am a flashy showman, but the warrior is not they are concerned with getting the job done and less concerned with the flash and adulation and admiring glances of the ladies that go along with it.
Yeah. They're not there to throw the party about it. They're just like, I'm just here to get it done, move on to the next.
Yep.
That's pretty much all there is. So their half magic ability is about carrying and repairing their weapons, military tactics and strategy, recalling Barsave military history, famous warriors, arms and armor. So to quote a movie, this is what they do, darling.
Yeah.
That's it.
It is, again, taking kind of a sense similar to what we had with the archer, for example. They have the ability to take care of and recognize the tools of their trade and the things that are associated with it. And again, just sort of the extension of half magic as this is stuff that they should be able to do without needing to have the player invest all kinds of advancement points in things that are largely just flavor.
So let's get down to the nitty gritty. They do not get a free talent.
No, because they need that high durability.
Exactly. And they have a durability of 7.
Yep, that's in first edition they had the highest durability of all disciplines.
Yes.
Because in first edition the durability rating was a little bit more varied as opposed to just kind of the 3 tiers that we've got in 4th edition. But they had a durability of
3, 5, or 7.
Of each rank of durability gave +9 to death rating and +7 to unconsciousness rating.
Yeah.
Sky Raiders only got +8, but the Warriors got +9. The Warriors just would have oodles and oodles of health which they would need.
There to take a beating.
Because they would be the one on the front line, basically taking the hits. So they've got the durability 7 so that they can have their health ratings increase and to be able to be there on the the front line taking the hits for their party.
Yeah, so they are absolutely all about that. So durability is 7, no free talent. So discipline talents right off the bat. These are all going to be big does, but we'll explain a couple of them. So avoid blow, duh.
Yep, obvious.
Melee weapons, or melee
obvious.
Weapons, duh. War weaving, thread weaving, because thread weaving
yep.
At first circle now. Tiger Spring, which is an initiative thing.
An initiative booster. One point of clarification that I actually want to make, because this has come up in recent weeks that I was not aware of. Tiger Spring enhances your initiative by providing a bonus to your dexterity step for the purposes of your initiative, which means it can help you overcome the penalties associated with heavier armor.
Mm-hmm.
Just Tiger Spring on its own actually does not allow you to, despite it being a talent, Morgan has clarified for me that because Tiger Spring itself is not a talent that is rolled, it is just something that is added on, that you can't actually spend karma on Tiger Spring.
Thank you, Morgan.
Yeah. I kind of always allowed it and have never had a problem with it, but that is the word from Morgan, and I can understand that as the situation where you can spend a point of karma if you are rolling the test. Tiger Spring is not a test, therefore you cannot spend karma.
Okay. Well, that's the letter of the law, spirit of the law, I guess.
Yeah.
If you've been doing it, if you want to change it, great. If not, no big deal.
And then after, and then Tiger Spring, basically.
Yeah, but Tiger Spring can be used with other things. This is a description like air dance and whatnot.
Which we would get to. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no hindrance on it otherwise, other than the fact you can't use karma. So, and then lastly, wood skin, which is a protection.
Yes. Basically, the warrior spends a recovery test, makes a roll, and adds the result of that roll to their death and unconsciousness ratings
temporarily.
Basically, what it is trading later healing for higher health now.
Yes.
It's basically what it does. And there's a sort of visual part of it where their skin gets like thicker and bark-like and whatnot to reflect that. But it basically allows them to take even more damage than they otherwise would. If their high durability wasn't enough, we'll throw a talent on top of that allows them to
take more of a beating.
To take more of a beating.
Yeah, because it lasts for a number of hours equal to your rank. So even at rank 1, it'll last for an hour, which is plenty of combat. If your combat goes for longer than an hour, you're in trouble. But yeah, so they have a void blow to get out of the way. And if they don't get out of the way, they have woodskin to take it. And then after that, they've got melee weapons to hit you back. And if they really want to make sure they hit you first, Tiger Spring.
Melee weapons to hit you and Tiger Spring to hit you first.
Exactly. So that is about as basic as you can get for a foundation for your character. Mm-hmm. I mean, seriously, there's nothing there you don't want. I can't find anything to trade out of it, but we'll get to the options in a minute or so. So second circle, they have +1 physical defense. Again, duh.
Yep,
but they get wound balance, which prevents them from being knocked down, which of course...
Yeah, if you do manage to get hit, and you do manage to get hard enough to cause a wound balance makes it hard to knock you down, because being knocked down, as we have discussed, is bad.
Yes. Chumbawamba. Yeah, So wound balance is a big... So again, second circle, why would you not have wound balance at second circle? All of this makes complete sense. Thank you, Josh.
Yep.
Third circle, karma point on recovery tests. Because you're going to be healing some damage. So yeah. Discipline talent, air dance, as aforementioned.
There's your other initiative booster.
Yes.
Air dance can be combined with Tiger Spring if you really want to go crazy and be acting faster.
Yeah.
Air dance is an actual talent test, so you can spend karma on that.
Yeah.
And if you roll high enough against the initiative, compared the initiative score of the person that you are attacking, if you are going fast enough, if you are going soon enough before them, you actually get an additional attack after they have taken their turn. And the way it's written in the rule is getting 2 extra successes, or a total of 3 successes compared to their initiative.
Yes.
So, but that basically means you need to beat your opponent's initiative by 10.
So there you are. So that's it. So it's an easy number to remember.
Beat your opponent's initiative by 10 or more, then you get the extra attack from air dance. And, so they like, you hit them, they get their turn. If they're still within range at that point, you can hit them again.
Yeah. So this is I think the earliest anybody can get a second attack.
Yeah, and it's only in particular circumstances. But
yeah, if you do that one right.
When you factor in that you probably have a reasonably high dex, might be a little penalized because of your armor, but you get the bonus ranks from Air Dance and Tiger Spring, and you can spend a point of karma on it.
Yeah, there you go. So at third circle, you can absolutely say, bring it.
Yeah.
And it will be brought in. So... So fourth circle, they get a +1 to their mystic defense because, they're still going to get hit with spells every once in a while, so you might as well buff that. And then this is a new one, Waterfall Slam as a discipline
Waterfall
talent.
Slam. Yep. This is a talent that basically increases the warrior's ability to knock targets down, to knock an opponent down. If they deal their opponent a wound or are using the attack to knockdown option or... using Shield Bash, which is a talent option that we'll get to in a little bit.
Yep.
They can activate Waterfall Slam to basically increase the difficulty number for their opponent's knockdown test.
Yes.
Basically. So if you've got a rank 4 in Waterfall Slam, when you deal a wound, anytime, when you trigger a knockdown test by your opponent, the difficulty number is increased by 4.
Yeah.
Basically you combine that with Shield Bash, you combine that with an attack to knockdown, and the idea there then is you put your opponent on the ground so that their defense is lowered and your allies or you can then follow up with even more devastating attacks.
Because this is what you do.
But of course, if you're going up against another warrior, they'll have wound balance, which can,
exactly.
Like there's sort of again like a counterplay going on there. Yes, exactly.
Escalation of the arms race. So those are the first 4 circles, and I not that I usually have any negatives to say about it, but those are as easy a foundation as there should be. That's like a perfect foundation.
Where things get interesting is when you start flavoring those with the options.
Yes. So we'll get to those. Acrobatic defense, which I love because it changes your physical defense per round. And I don't know if that would ever be a better discipline talent. That's a good option.
It makes you, it makes you harder to hit. The reason that it's an option is because of the other, basically it's, what style of warrior are you going to be? As we go through kind of these other options, you'll see that unlike some of the disciplines we've talked about where you can you can go and take a bunch of options that are social talents and be kind of more of a social whatever, or you can take a few talents to do this. The warrior doesn't have a lot of those. Their options kind of dictate, what style of ass kicker are you going to be? Acrobatic defense is a really strong talent choice because you already will have a high dexterity. It is a dexterity based talent. Yeah. And so it's good. It provides you bonuses to your physical defense, useful against groups. And this is your, to call back to the karma ritual, this is your water defense. Yes. This is the moving around and dodging your blows and so forth when you're getting attacked maybe by multiple targets, your ability to increase your physical defense to make it harder for them to hit you, and going from there.
Before you have to roll Avoid Blow.
Well, the downside of Avoid Blow is that you need to make a test for each attack that potentially hits you, whereas acrobatic defense will boost your defense against multiple opponents. So in terms of an efficiency thing, a strain efficiency thing, which is something that we'll get to, I think, after we've gone through the whole list here.
Oh, totally.
Is what you do. So the acrobatic defense is, okay, I'm going to be going more on the dexterity, but I also don't want to get hit.
Totally. And then you have Anticipate Blow.
This is the one where this is a talent that's based off of perception and does require you to be acting sooner than your opponent. So this is one that's a lot more reliant, perhaps more reliant on speed, even more than acrobatic defense is, because acrobatic defense doesn't do you much good if you happen to be acting late in the round and everybody tries to hit you before you can trigger it. But Anticipate Blow is the one that you take if you are going to be more of a perception. If you're going to have your perception be a little bit higher, or maybe you're playing a race that has a perception bonus to give you a little bit there. Anticipate Blow.
Even better.
As opposed to acrobatic defense, which allows you to basically boost your defense against a group of opponents that's coming after you. Anticipate Blow allows you to selectively target, but in addition to boosting your defense against that chosen target, it also boosts your attack your next attack against them. Basically, the idea being, okay, I know they're going to come at me here, so I'm going to step aside and like hit them as well. So it combines a little bit of defense with some attack based on a perception basis on your ability to read your opponent and see what they're going to do.
And if you need a movie reference for that, go watch the original Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
He has a pugilist fight where he actually breaks it down. I expect this move to come from this opponent, and I can counter it this way. So there is exactly how to take a look at that.
There's your anticipate blow.
Exactly. Danger sense, which I've always called Spidey sense.
Very, very useful. I mean, it's useful for like traps and whatnot, but for the warrior, it is mainly for the ability to reduce your chance of getting hampered in an ambush situation. Because it allows you to basically make another test to get around surprise.
And then distract, which is a team.
Yeah, this is the team-based talent. We talked about this a little bit, I think, with Air Sailor, because they get it. But basically, it allows it's the tank, to borrow the video game reference, this is the tank talent. This is where the warrior basically says, hey, come and hit me, and they make themselves an inviting target, opening up their opponent to be more easily hit by their allies.
Yeah, so the distract is they can draw your aggro. So, and then Fireblood.
Fireblood is a healing in combat talent.
Yes.
They don't really need discipline talent for both Woodskin and Fireblood, but if you...
And Woodskin makes more sense as a preparatory thing.
Woodskin is more of a preparatory thing. Fireblood allows you to heal in combat, again, at the cost of recovery tests. But it's one that is, if you're going to be going more of a maybe Berserker style or more aggressive type warrior, as opposed to the more perhaps patient or like guardian style warrior, you might go with a Fireblood, taking a little bit from the aggressive nature of the Sky Raider, which is where that talent really originates with.
This is your rub some dirt on it and keep fighting. So, and then maneuver.
Maneuver is kind of
always been underrated.
Yeah, it's kind of a companion or a flip of anticipate blow. That is that it allows you to increase your defense ratings and get a bonus on an attack against an opponent. But it is dexterity based, whereas anticipate blow is perception based. And so it is finding the high ground. It is like position. It is about positioning and maneuvering to get into a good spot. Again, whereas acrobatic defense is against groups, maneuver is a single target. You know, is a single target talent.
So if you want to min-max your build, if you have a higher perception, take one. If you have a higher dexterity, take the other. And that's essentially.
Or if you want to go crazy and upload as many defensive stuff as you want, then that is certainly an option as well.
Fair. I'm going to skip one for a second. So let's go to Shield Bash.
Yes.
Which is, as you said, just a damage test instead of an actual attack.
Right.
So it's
you still use melee weapons to make the attack. That basically in this case you are using the shield as a weapon, and it does strength plus rank. But the thing that Shield Bash does is it does two things. One, it's an attack to knockdown, that you are generating the target number for your opponent to possibly be knocked down. Combines really well with Waterfall Slam at fourth circle. But it also does damage, which a normal attack to knockdown option does not. So it allows the warrior to double up on something that that other disciplines don't really have the option of doing. Yeah. It's an option because you have the warrior style that maybe wants to go two-handed weapon and is not using a shield. So you get the Waterfall Slam to still use that power to maybe knock your opponent down. But if you're not using a shield, it's not great to force something on somebody, like to force them to have a shield if they are going to be going with a fighting style that doesn't use one.
Fair. Since it's kind of a melee attack, should they also not get maybe a generic damage step for the shield in there?
No, because...
Okay.
No. Because I mean,
that's the question.
I don't really know
because there's no damage step associated with a shield, so that's why I was just answer somebody's question out there that they might have.
There's not that's something that has never really been looked at in terms of mechanics going even back to first edition.
Fair.
Although with like historical study and stuff of fighting styles with shields, a shield is not just something that you hold in front of you. A shield is often, especially when you're talking about smaller shields like bucklers and things like that, where you're dealing with it as secondary weapon, a bludgeoning weapon, of sorts.
Yeah.
But still, it's just, I think, following in the tradition of the shield normally is a defensive thing, providing you defense bonuses.
Yeah.
And that goes to other games and whatnot as well. But the shield bash talent allows you to use it as a weapon to a greater effect than you otherwise might.
Fair. And then tactics.
This is where you get into like the idea of the warrior as a soldier, as a company or a group or a commander
or a field general.
Tactics, basically, warrior comes up with a general plan for the fight that they are about to get into, and if successful, can grant bonuses to themselves and their allies, or I think it allows also penalty. It provides bonuses to the warrior and his allies, but they can be either offensive, meaning that you provide bonuses to like attack and stuff, or defensive, where you provide a bonus to
physical, mystic, and social
defenses. In earlier editions, it was largely something that was used mainly when interacting with NPCs, and so wasn't particularly great as a talent for your typical adventuring group. We've opened that up to allow it to be used with player characters, but the group kind of like, in order to use this as a talent, the warrior player kind of needs to lay out the plan, and the group kind of needs to follow it in order to get the bonuses. And so it's an option because it's not something that necessarily every warrior would have, and it does kind of lean towards a play style that maybe not every group is comfortable with.
Yeah, so none of those would be considered better than a disciplined talent that was already assigned. These are why they're options. That's just what kind of... The other ones are the basic foundation. This is leaning in the area of, okay, maybe I want to lean this way a little bit later on. This is where you like add the flavor of the style of warrior.
Oh yeah, the fighting style and whatnot that you're going to have.
First and second circle down. Now the adventure's kind of gone in this other direction. I'm going to pick up this other talent to help flesh out the party this well, or even my character. I want to go this way. Yes, we have two more.
We're pretty straightforward.
Which, of course, rounds out because your discipline talent is melee weapons. Your options are missile weapons or unarmed combat.
These are talents that in a first edition style progression would probably be in there somewhere, because the warrior is an all-around master of combat, and so it would make sense for them to be able to use ranged weapons and to fight unarmed as well as they can do a sword. The problem is, like kind of what I said earlier, many of their abilities don't... The problem that you have is that the warrior doesn't have anything to boost their damage unarmed the way that the Beastmaster does with Claw Shape. And so unarmed combat is useful for grappling, which is always a pain in the rear end. Designing a good grappling system for RPGs is a headache and a half.
Nuts.
So, like, it's good for, like, grappling, and it's good for, like, bar fights and stuff, but there's other stuff that kind of fits better in terms of the typical warrior thing, and so it ends up in the option land.
As it should. Yeah.
They don't get throwing weapons. I mean, they could, but throwing weapons, I think, as we've discussed before, are kind of tend to be a weaker option. If you are in a range where you would be using a throwing weapon, the warrior might just as well close in and hang on to their weapon as opposed to, fire. Like,
because they can take the beating to close that gap.
Yeah. Whereas missile weapons you would start that out maybe when you're a little bit further away, and then you would put it away once you get closer into close combat range.
Yeah. So if you desperately want to swap one out, I'll let you do that as a game master. But yeah, I remember in the original first edition build, I don't think they got missile. I don't think the warriors got missile weapons until like 8th circle.
The warriors got all. Yeah, the warrior got all 4 of the basic combat types: melee, unarmed, throwing, and missile.
Yes. But I think they got them like one every 4 circles or something. So it was a long time before you got the
but again, like the. So, I mean, it made sense, and that's...
So, we're not talking first, we're talking 4th. So, I applaud that missile weapons and unarmed combat and melee weapons are options for the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th circle.
Yeah.
If you want to get them, you can get them. If you need to fill that gap in your party, you can do it.
Right. Yeah, the warrior toolkit, the talents that they have, and this goes all the way back to first edition. They don't have the. I mean, you've got the ranged specialist in the archer. You don't need to have the warrior getting a bunch of like stuff that's going to, and like if you want to play a ranged attacker, you play an archer. You don't play a warrior who takes missile weapons. You know, that division of having those different disciplines focusing on different combat styles really means that you don't want to water down the warrior's close combat potential by giving them talents that will allow them to do well in ranged. If somebody wants to be ranged, you play the archer.
Totally. Yeah, and if you've got like a Robin Hood in your head, you still want to play an archer, but in Earthdawn, archers don't get melee weapons like you would for a sword. So you can kind of play that. If you want to have Robin Hood in your head, swordsman and archer, this is the way to go. More or less. So on to fifth circle.
Yes.
Their ability is battle rights.
Battle rights is so one of the things that you will find if you look at the warriors' talent list, both their discipline talents and their talent options. A lot of their abilities cost strain.
They are a strain sponge.
They are a strain intensive. They are a strain intensive discipline.
Hence the higher durability.
But hence also battle rights. Once they get into journeyman, they can select a talent during their sort of morning meditation, and at any point over the next 24 hours, they can spend a point of karma to reduce the strain cost of that selected talent by once per round. So you could select, say, Tiger Spring, which normally costs 1 strain.
Or Avoid Blow.
Yeah. Or one of those talents that you might be using quite a bit, and do your battle rights for the 1 point of karma per encounter. You no longer have to spend strain on that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Or you reduce the cost of air dance from 2 to 1.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So it's definitely something there. It's like, okay, you're starting to get to the point where you are, you can sort of we realize you have a lot of stuff that causes strain. Here's something that,
here's something a way to
that can mitigate that a little bit.
Exactly. Then they have a karma at fifth circle, because I think everybody does. They can now spend a point of karma on any damage test made in close combat.
Yep.
So if you did take missile weapons...
Close combating is melee and unarmed. So they could spend karma on unarmed damage tests if they were at that point.
Yes.
But basically they can now spend karma on their damage because they don't, unlike Beastmaster who has claw shape or Cavalryman who has charge, there aren't a lot of talents in the novice tier that allow you to spend karma on damage. So, boom, there at fifth circle you get the ability to spend karma on damage.
Yeah, which... in fourth edition, like as we've mentioned on a number of builds, you get through first, second, and third rather quickly. You get to fourth.
Yeah, you can.
And you don't hang around in fourth all that long. You'll get to fifth pretty quick. So it's not going to seem like it's forever and a day away to get there. So you'll get to fifth pretty quickly. And then, of course, they get the discipline talent of earth skin to go along with wood skin.
Yep, this goes along with wood skin. Earth skin, in addition to providing, I think it's a bonus to... Is it just death rating?
I am looking it up right now just because. Earth skin. +2 to his mystic defense per success for a number of hours equal to his earth skin rank.
Oh, no. Okay. I'm thinking of something else. So, fair. So earth skin increases their mystic defense.
Yeah.
So it is another... It makes them more able to withstand magic and stuff. It does, again, cost a recovery test, the way that other stuff... the way that wood skin or fireblood, if they took that as an option, does. So their ability to use it is limited, but it enhances their mystic defense since they tend to have a lower perception. It's good for them to have the ability to reinforce their defenses against spells and other mystic defense targeting stuff.
Attacks. Because that's what they're there for, is to take a beating in any way, shape, manner, and form. So... otherwise, sixth circle, another plus to the physical defense, because of course you have to by this point, but they get the discipline talent of temper flesh.
We talked about this with the weaponsmith.
Which sounds creepy.
The weaponsmith gets this as well.
But it's not.
This basically allows the warrior to increase their health ratings and wound threshold, which is important because, again, a higher wound threshold means you're not going to take as many wounds and not likely to be knocked down.
And not a lot of things ever affect the wound threshold.
Yeah, there's not much. So it is willpower based. So, unlike a weaponsmith who tends to have a higher willpower. Warrior, actually, willpower isn't bad for a warrior either because it does boost your mystic armor.
No.
So that's something to keep in mind there. But it basically, it's another like defensive, like being able to take more damage talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Soak it.
Pretty useful.
And then 7th circle, they get another recovery test because, again, you're going to need that to heal.
Because they're going to need them.
Yeah. Not only are you a strain sponge, but you're the damage sponge. And then you get the discipline talent of crushing.
Well, and then you've got like, I mean, we've talked like got 3 talents, 2 of them discipline talents, one of them is an option that cost recovery tests to use.
You might as well get another recovery test.
You're going to need that additional recovery test.
They are by 7th circle. And then, of course, discipline talent, crushing blow, which I love the name of.
Crushing blow. Yep. This is a damage enhancing talent.
Yes.
It basically substitutes for strength to deal additional damage in combat when you hit somebody.
Yeah.
So it's a damage adder. It's pretty straightforward. It is broadly useful in any kind of situation. There are no, unlike downstrike, unlike some other stuff, if you hit them, you can if you hit them in close combat, you can use crushing blow to boost your damage.
Or as my party has nicknamed it, anime damage. So, and always very fun because I think you can use crushing blow on every attack. So if you happen to get your second attack with air dance, then
you can use crushing blow on that as well. Just you have to pay an additional strain cost.
Oh darn! 1 strain? Sure.
Well, or hey, I use battle rights on crushing blow, so now I don't have to pay strain on it.
Exactly, because I know I'm going to.
Although actually, the strain is reduced by 1 once per round. So if you are getting multiple uses out of it,
you're still only spending half.
Then you're still going to pay some strain to do it.
1 strain for 2 attacks on crushing blow. I'm okay with that. That works for me. So there's your Earthdawn Survival Guide tip of the week right there. Otherwise, 8th circle, another bonus to physical defense because why would you not? And then your discipline talent of second attack to go along with the one you just earned, crushing blow the previous circle. So there you are. But second attack.
So now you get a second attack. So potentially, if your air dance is high enough and you're using air dance, at that point you're potentially up to 3 attacks, 1 with your basic melee weapons, 1 from air dance, and 1 from second attack.
So again, you can at 8th circle, you can definitely say bring it and mean it. So, but then we have the options, which again fleshes out your type of warrior you want to be. So first up, and these are all in alphabetical order, disarm.
Yep, your ability to get rid of your opponent's weapon.
Which occasionally might just be enough to defeat them. Not necessarily kill them, but again, the object of the warrior is to defeat your opponent. So disarm takes theirs away. Etiquette.
Their one real social talent. As soldiers, as mercenaries, as warriors, they... there is a culture, there is a, basically sort of the ability to handle that. This would probably be more the domain of somebody who is going to be a commander sort who might be dealing with like nobles and things like that.
Yeah.
So where they would understand the appropriate way to behave in certain circumstances, whether that is within the context of a warrior company or in the halls of power where they are perhaps a guard or something along those lines. But
or even if you've completed the adventure and you've killed the bad guy and the town wants to throw you a party, you at least know how to behave at a party.
Yeah, but it is absolutely not required. It's just something that I think only the Beastmaster gets fewer. I think as we pointed out in the first 8 circles, at least the Beastmaster doesn't get any, whereas the warrior at least gets etiquette.
Yes. So this is your ability to read the room, and but again, it's an option. It's not required.
Yeah.
And then of course leadership. To your point, if they want to be the field general or the tactician or the one in charge.
Right. This is the one that sort of combines with. Similar to tactics, although this one is more of a charisma-based, inspirational. This is King Henry given his St. Crispin's Day speech, and basically allows them to take charge of a group, and things like that. It doesn't really provide any bonuses on its own, but if you're dealing with NPCs, then this would allow you then, like you have taken command of this group, they see you as their leader, then you can use tactics with them to give them bonuses and things like that.
Yeah. Your leadership will therefore protect them.
Again, this is the talent that maybe not particularly useful for your traditional like adventuring warrior in a NPC group or in a player character group, but definitely something that should be in the warrior's kit as a commander, as a leader, as a general, or something along those lines.
Absolutely, you should be. There's a progression to being a warrior. You will eventually make lieutenant, colonel, general, so forth.
Right. In
your expertise and battle prowess. So yes, I see that. Life check, which is basically just a last chance healing. If you drop below your, if your damage exceeds your death rating, you can immediately make a recovery test. And if it brings you back down below your death rating, then you don't die. Yes. So by all means, the warrior should have that. You strain sponge, damage sponge. And then Lionheart. That's
your fear and intimidation resisting talent.
It's your social defense.
Makes a lot of sense for it to be something. Yeah, it's not really social in that regard. It's
not for your social defense, but just for your social resistance to being intimidated or being scared or
or if you are affected by it, you can like shake off the effects more easily.
This is your rising to the challenge.
Makes sense in terms of the brave stoic warrior standing up in the face of
overwhelming odds,
frightening circumstances.
So this is your ability to rise to the challenge. Momentum attack, which I've always loved, is kind of like a move through.
It's basically a talent that under certain circumstances, if you roll high enough on your attack, grants you an additional attack. So it is one that can potentially give you multiple attacks, provided that you're rolling well enough. So, again, makes sense for a warrior that, if you want to go with a more aggressive style, momentum attack is certainly one that would go right into that wheelhouse.
Totally. And then we hit the S's. Second weapon, which kind of speaks for itself.
Second weapon. This is probably one you're going to take if you are not going a two-handed route or you're not going a sword and shield style. If you want to go with a second weapon, then that's certainly a Florentine style. Second weapon tends to be more along the lines of a swordmaster image, but you absolutely can do that as a warrior. Just again, if you're, what kind of combat style are you going to be going with? Yeah,
if you watch the show Vikings at all, an axe in one hand and a sword in the other hand, that's all you. So, not a bad thing. Spot armor flaw, which goes right in line with what a warrior should be able to do.
Yep, this works well with if you're going with the more perception-based warrior that, say, for example, takes Anticipate Blow. Since Spot Armor Flaw is perception-based, but it allows you to increase the damage of your attacks against an opponent by spotting their weaknesses.
Yes. Attack there. And that also goes along with like tactics, just to say, my enemy's forces as a whole are weakest over here. I spot their armor flaw as an individual, it's weakest here, same thing. So, all perception-based as well. Steely Stare, which I always love the name of.
This is an intimidation talent, basically. This is sort of the next closest thing that the warrior gets to a social talent. But basically you look at your opponent and you intimidate them by just,
glaring
and grimacing and whatnot.
I'm going to stare you down. And that sometimes works. If you're a big bad mofo, this will work for you. And then lastly, Swift Kick, which is another,
Swift Kick, which is an unarmed, basically way to deal a little bit of extra, again, if you want to go crazy on the potential attacks for your warrior, when you get into your journeyman talents, your options, you're going to grab like momentum attack, swift kick, spot armor flaw, probably, to boost the damage, and then maybe life check or maybe second weapon.
Yeah.
Because at that point, if you go like 2-weapon style, you can get your primary attack with melee weapons, second attack with that same weapon, a second weapon. If any of those roll well enough, then you get a momentum attack. And then swift kick if you're acting soon enough to do like an unarmed thing in there. At that point, you are absolutely like crazy in terms of your potential attack and damage output.
Yeah, because this is what you do. This is what you're made for.
Right.
And you do it well.
So, a lot of those like additional attack talents and stuff, you can build your warrior to take advantage of that, but but it is not something that feels required in terms of what all of them should be able to do. Again, it's like a style thing. Are you going to be a warrior that is going to be doing that in terms of your what sort of warrior order, what kind of combat style were you trained up in, and therefore have that as your
modus operandi,
as your choice. So there is some role-playing expression and stuff that can kind of go along with that.
And it also depends upon what campaign or what group you're playing in. If you're playing in a very small group, perhaps you do need to flesh out the other unarmed combat and the missile weapons. If you're playing in a larger group, maybe you don't. Maybe you can just focus on your duties and what you can do.
Yeah, or maybe, rather than, if you're not going to go with the missile weapons and unarmed combat, you can still go with like the multiple attacks when you get into the higher circle to be able to deal out more damage if you don't have as many like other frontline heavy physical combat damage dealers in your group.
And if you're playing more of a heady investigation type of campaign or mystery solving or excavating cares and things like that, then maybe you don't need as many attacks. They're badass to have, I'm not going to lie. But perhaps you don't need those, and you can play more of a noble warrior in your head, more stoic and not, less rash, whatever the case may be. Because nothing in here says anything about being rash or headstrong or wanting to fight or fighting everything. And no, none of that's there. So it's just...
A lot of the option choices that you will take as a warrior should be influenced by your character's personality and background, and taking the talents that play into that, not looking at them purely from a combat numbers perspective, but also using them as a way to express your character's individuality and style in that, which is again a place where like there's this perception often of, the fighter is a really kind of basic, straightforward, like simple class to play in a lot of fantasy games. That is maybe partially true for the warrior in Earthdawn, but with the talents that they get and the choices that they make, there are actually a lot of tactical options that they can make in terms of what they do. In terms of how they approach things. Like, are you going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to start off, I'm going up against a group of enemies. I'm going to be like up on the front line. I'm going to go in and I'm going to start up with, a tiger spring and, if I'm not like a tiger spring and air dance, so I can be acting sooner and, maybe use an acrobatic defense as I get in the middle of the enemies, and maybe then do a shield bash to take one of them down to the ground so that, they can like somebody coming in behind me can hit them while I'm like focusing on the bigger sort of physical threat to be able to, there's a lot of interactions.
Follow me.
There's a lot of interactions and tactical choices that you can make as a warrior that actually provides a certain amount of complexity that I think people new to Earthdawn would be perhaps surprised or caught off guard by if they are expecting the warrior to be an easy choice. And at low circles, they actually are. You don't have a lot of stuff in terms of the, but that's kind of the case with a lot of disciplines. But as you gain circles and as you get more of these tools to put into your combat kit, there's a lot of interactions and a lot of interesting choices that can be made, and a lot of ways to express your character's style and personality through those choices and the way that they use them in combat.
Yeah, because again, if there's something about a warrior that's not laid out in those talents and those talent options, you've always got skills. To buff up the rest of your character, to flesh out that ROLE playing that perhaps Josh and I didn't lay out well enough for you in the talent descriptions. But if they're not, if you're wanting to play a warrior that's a little bit more than that, good on you. But the skills are always there to help flesh out any discipline, period. But the warrior more so, just in case this is a little too shoehorning for you.
Yeah, I mean, the warrior. Because the warrior is... Their flashiness, it's not that... They can be flashy, like in terms of what they're doing in combat when you start talking about acrobatic defense and all of these different kind of maneuvers and stuff that they can pull in the course of combat, but they don't have the performative flash of the swordmaster, say, or the although they can kind of be built that way, they don't tend to have like the sheer raw aggressiveness of the Sky Raider. The warrior is a little bit more of a blank slate in terms of allowing you to express your style through combat. There's a little bit more flexibility in that because the options are dedicated to different styles as opposed to like, okay, well, we've got like the Swordmaster, who we haven't talked about yet, but the Swordmaster, are you going to focus on combat, or are you going to focus on social, or are you going to kind of do a balance of the both? And so consequently, those options kind of steer you down like one archetype or the other. With the warrior, it's, you can pick your style and they all kind of interact together fairly well in order to allow you to do that. We touched on this earlier. I want to reiterate it again. The warrior is... ends up using a lot of strain, and that is one thing to keep an eye on as you play a warrior, is to keep an eye on your strain use in relation to your overall damage. You generally will want to have a good balance with some of the changes that were made in terms of armor defeating hits and the way that shields are used and whatnot. If you want to go with a more like defensive tank style warrior who's not focused so much on dealing the damage, although they certainly can, as they are being able to draw the attention and take the abuse of the opponents while their allies kind of are the ones that do the damage, then you get yourself heavier armor and a shield.
And the highest toughness you can.
Heavier armor, a shield, and, distract. And you focus on some of those things that will... maybe combining that with a acrobatic defense or, things along those lines. But yeah, there's a lot of room to kind of go with style, but keep an eye on that. Woodskin, Fireblood, if you're going, if you're finding that you're kind of doing more damage. The one thing to kind of keep in mind is the resource management of your recovery tests. You do, when you get into the really higher circle with the warrior, there is a talent that basically each rank in the talent gives you an additional recovery test that you can use to power stuff like Woodskin and whatnot. But in your novice and journeyman tiers, that is a fairly limited resource. So that's kind of why toughness is important. If you can get, if you're playing an Obsidian warrior, for example, which is perhaps super iconic, or even a dwarf or a troll who also have high kind of starting toughness. If you can, you almost certainly want to get into that recovery test where you've got step 6 or step 7, where you're going to have 3 recovery tests per day.
Yeah, that's a good start.
In order to power those. If you're not going to go that high because perhaps you are going with maybe an elf warrior who has a toughness penalty, but has the really high dex to kind of make up for it, then you're probably not going to be wanting to look at, I'm going to pick up Fireblood as well, because you don't have the recovery test resources to really power all of that effectively.
Yeah.
When you get some...
your min-maxing tip.
Yeah, when you get some ranks under Woodskin and it's going to be lasting for several hours, at that point where you can maybe use it early in the day and have it be useful throughout, multiple encounters, whereas that's not quite the case so much when you're early on. There is a lot of resource management, in terms of the resources that you have as your character's health ratings and recovery tests and things like that. And just figuring out the good balance between, how much defense do I need? Like, is this a fight? And trying to leverage the knowledge and what you can determine about your opponents. Like, is this a fight where I'm really going to want to sort of turtle up? Or is this a fight where I can go more aggressive? Are they going to because even outside of the personal style, those are considerations, especially as you get more tools that you may want to look into as well. So there's a lot of potential richness and sort of gamification that you can have as the warrior. The limitation being that it is focused pretty much on beating stuff up. So if you've got a game that's not going to have a lot of that, you might find yourself a little bit more limited as a warrior, compared to, say, a swordmaster or some other combat discipline. But combat is such a traditional thing in RPGs that, unlike some other disciplines where you might not get the scene focus on your strong suits, you're gonna be fighting stuff as a warrior.
Yeah, you're gonna be wading in knee deep
at some point,
if not waist deep. So you're there. A couple of pop culture references I think we should probably lean people toward if you can't quite wrap your head around exactly what type of warrior you want to play. I don't know what you had in mind when helping to revise the Warrior for 4th edition. I always turn people toward the movie Gladiator.
Okay, yeah.
Or Conan the Barbarian, which is a big duh.
Yeah.
You kind of have to just edge people that way.
Yeah.
And then a lesser known one
I would actually be more towards the Conan of the actual Robert Howard
novels.
Stories, yes, as opposed to the films, which tend to take Conan into a more Sky Raider-y direction, just in terms of his like aggressiveness and whatnot. But there's still, there's certainly something you take. Xena, Warrior Princess.
Yeah. I also lean toward a lesser known movie, The 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas. Great movie. Underrated movie. Yeah. Very underrated. Good pull. And then lastly, like I said earlier, the Vikings TV show.
Yeah. I mean,
watch even half a season, you'll get a warrior.
Unlike some of the disciplines that we've talked about here, pop culture is not really lacking in warrior archetypes.
Not so much
to borrow ideas and inspiration from.
No, and that's just the first 4 I could pull in the last 3 minutes I was thinking about it. That was pretty much it. So
yeah, and we talked about stuff like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and
absolutely
things like that to kind of go with that flavor.
And 47 Ronin, which a lot of people didn't like. I love that movie.
I haven't seen it.
A lot of samurai warriors in that one as well.
It's Keanu Reeves, who I am a fan of. It's just not one that I have had a chance to see yet.
If you've got 2.5 hours to kill, I recommend it highly. For me personally, it has everything I've ever wanted in a movie: love story, honor, missed romance, and sense of obligation. It's a beautiful movie. Personally, I love it. So send me your hate mail now if you want to. I don't care. I will love that movie forever. Anyway, that about wraps up what we have to talk about for Warriors, and I don't think we really missed anything.
Yeah, we have I think ended this battle. Wrapped things up, but
yeah. So yeah, pick your flavor of warrior.
Yeah, pick your flavor of warrior. There's a lot of area to explore on that, and definitely worth. There is always space for a warrior. I think in any group, definitely worth having.
That's why I think there's one on the cover of the player's guide, right there.
Yeah, certainly.
Guy holding the sword and the shield. Done. He's a warrior.
We hope we hope everybody is, like we kind of talked about at the opening, keeping sane, keeping safe, keeping healthy.
Stay healthy. Use your recovery tests. Use
your recovery tests.
Get your downtime, and by all means, this will be over soon. We hope all the social distancing, all the COVID-19 scares, will get back to being in public again, and by all means. Thank you, Josh, for making the time.
Of course.
I'm happy we're recording this 2,000 miles apart. This has not hindered the recording of this podcast in any way. So we're in good shape.
We've got the remote stuff going on here pretty nicely. As always, if you want to drop us a line, edsgpodcast@gmail.com. Follow me on various social medias. Follow Facet Games on various social medias. If you have not already, check out the Iopos Lair of Deceit Kickstarter that should be running now as this episode drops. The book, if the Kickstarter campaign is over, the book will still be available after the fact, so you will not have missed out. You'll just have missed out on some of the discounts for bundles of books and whatnot that we offer as part of our campaigns. Or Earthdawn Guild group on Facebook, the Facet Games Discord, forums, and various other places. Like, rate and review, subscribe, all of that happy stuff that drives our modern digital media culture.
Because if you can't find us, you're not trying hard enough.
Well, I mean, you're listening to this show, so you're already halfway there. Go check the show notes. Anchor.fm/EDSG podcast, I think is what the URL is. for the actual site, but the show notes and stuff are usually included in the feeds from other places as well, depending on how they run things.
Yeah, you can just type in Earthdawn Survival Guide podcast. It'll probably lead you to Anchor, and that's where the home
as one of the top options.
Fair. Other than that, folks, it is time for you to go make your own warrior legend, because there's always room for warriors.
Have a good night, everybody.